Kill it! Kill it! Rosemary's Baby wasn't just a horror film, it was a whispered nightmare inside your living room. It wasn't simply about pregnancy and paranoia. It was about the uneasy shiver creeping under everyday normality. The curtains flicker, the neighbors smile, and something truly monstrous is happening. What audiences didn't know, the set was fraught with tension. Filming erupted into creative battles. Dangerous stunts were real. Casting choices almost collapsed. Studio interference loomed, and real-world consequences haunted the production for years. Today, we're diving into 20 weird facts about Rosemary's Baby, and stick around for the bonus fact that even hardcore fans rarely know. Grab your camera angle, check your lighting, and let's unravel the hidden chaos behind the screen. But first, hit that like button and subscribe to join our deep dive film investigations. Fact number 1. A neighborhood building becomes a character. The imposing apartment building in the film, the fictional Bramford, was more than a backdrop. It was chosen and treated like a character in its own right. The story's author, Ira Levin, modeled it on real-life structures like the Alwyn Court and the iconic Dakota on Manhattan's Upper West Side. The production team knew they needed atmosphere. Director Roman Polanski and cinematographer William A. Fraker meticulously lit each room so that you felt the building's menace at a subconscious level. It wasn't just a residence, it was a trap, a gothic womb for the horror. Walking into the Bramford meant stepping into dread. That detail elevates an ordinary set into a suffocating character of its own. Fact number 2. The budget went off the rails. The film had a modest budget for its time, but Polanski's perfectionism cost more than anticipated. The shoot ran months behind and ultimately went over by around $400,000. It wasn't sloppy spending, it was obsessive detail. Dozens of takes for a single shot, reshoots, set changes, studio executives started to sweat. Meanwhile, Polanski was pushing for subtle visual language, the faint scratch on Rosemary's neck, the shifting light in the hallway, the disturbing calm of the Blumford party. When budgets blow up, creative control often suffers. Here, it enabled the craft, but it also introduced tension behind the camera. Fact number 3. The danger of New York traffic. What if I told you one of the most dangerous sequences was shot without full stunt coordination? In the scene where Rosemary runs into the street in panic, Mia Farrow playing Rosemary actually stepped into real Manhattan traffic, and the roar of horns is real. It wasn't carefully choreographed. It was bravery mixed with risk. Polanski told Farrow, "Nobody will hit a pregnant woman." According to sources, the cameraman refused, so Polanski directed handheld. This isn't just a cinematic trick, it's a tremor of reality in a horror film. The audience feels the peril because the actress was exposed to it. That choice blurs fiction and truth and raises the stakes in ways most viewers never recognize. Fact number 4. Casting drama behind the scenes. Mia Farrow almost didn't get the role of Rosemary Woodhouse. Polanski originally considered actors like Tuesday Weld or Jane Fonda. It wasn't indecision. It was search for the every woman who could embody terror in domesticity. When Farrow auditioned, Polanski changed his mind. But the pressure on her was enormous. She was young, inexperienced in horror, and thrust into a role that demanded raw vulnerability. Meanwhile, actor John Cassavetes, cast as Guy Woodhouse, clashed with Polanski's rigid direction. Cassavetes' improvisational style collided with Polanski's methodical pacing. The tension between camera setups and actor autonomy gave the shoot an undercurrent of struggle. And the audience senses it. Guy's manipulative calm rings authentic because the actor was wrestling with real on-set strain. The casting turmoil feeds the film's unsettling texture. Fact number 5. Eating raw chicken liver, the real deal. That unforgettable party scene where Rosemary rebels with raw meat, it wasn't fake. Mia Farrow, who was a committed vegetarian, had to eat raw chicken livers for real. It wasn't a comfort take, it was discomfort earned. She described the scene's revulsion as real. The camera doesn't hide her disgust because it is hers. When a performer puts their body on the line, an extra layer of tension seeps into the image. That choice wasn't just aesthetic, it was visceral. And viewers watching decades later feel it, the nausea, the unease, even if they don't know the backstory. Fact number 6. A curse whispered in Hollywood. Over the years, the film acquired a shadowy aura, rumors of a curse. Members of the cast and crew died or suffered tragedies in the years following production. It wasn't belief in superstition, it was coincidence piled high with dread. Composer Krzysztof Komeda died tragically after an accident. Producer William Castle was flooded with hate mail and suffered health issues. The overlap with real-world cult violence, most notably the tragic fate of Polanski's wife Sharon Tate, gave the mythos weight. Whether you believe in curses or not, the production's aftermath hung like a dark cloud. The film's subject occult, maternity, control, mirrored the tabloid horror that followed, art and life intertwined in the worst possible way. Fact number 7. Studio interference and consolidating control. The film was produced by William Castle Enterprises for Paramount Pictures. Initially, they envisioned more sensational horror. Castle's previous work leaned toward gimmick. It wasn't pure artistic freedom, it was a negotiation. Castle nearly pushed for a 3D Illusion O format and Vincent Price in a leading role. Polanski insisted on a quiet terror, embedded in domestic texture, not cheap shock. That shift caused friction, and studio bosses monitored costs, schedule delays, and the tricky balance between art horror and commercial success. The result? A film that became both a critical triumph and a box office hit, despite early resistance. What you see on screen is the equilibrium of vision and commerce. The battle behind that equilibrium is hidden in plain sight. Fact number 8. The architecture of fear, room by room. Polanski and his team deliberately treated each room in the apartment set differently. In one interview, Polanski said they asked themselves, what kind of atmosphere can we create? When you went from room to room, there would be a different light. It wasn't random lighting, it was psychological geography. Enter the living room warmish, enter the bedroom restricted, move to the hallway oppressive. The shift disorients, you never feel safe. The morale, most horror depends on location. Here, the location is choreographed. The set becomes the labyrinth of paranoia. That's the secret gloom that creeps in every frame. Fact number 9. Hidden numeric evil, 616. If you look closely, there's a subtle gag. The script indicates Rosemary's Baby is due June 1966, 666, a nod to the devil's number. It wasn't fully spelled out, it was encoded. Polanski loved visual and symbolic whispers. The audience might not consciously catch the date, but the stores, the papers, the numbers around the film give unease. In horror, the hidden triggers do more work than the overt jump scares. That numeric detail is the kind of secret seasoning that makes the peanut butter and grape jelly of the story disturbingly sticky. Fact number 10. Mia Farrow's personal life collides with the role. During production, Mia Farrow's marriage to Frank Sinatra was falling apart. In one brutal moment, Sinatra's divorce papers arrived on set via corporate lawyer. It wasn't just career upheaval, it was personal devastation while portraying a woman losing control of her body and her life. Farrow almost walked away from the project, but was persuaded to stay after the producers showed her a rough cut. And here's your mid-roll moment. Go ahead and like and subscribe, because we've only reached half our list, and the next 10 facts are even stranger. Stick around because the bonus fact will blow what you thought you knew out of the water. Fact number 11. The dream party sequence shot at sea. The sequence where Rosemary attends the party on a yacht wasn't recorded entirely on land. It was filmed on a vessel near Santa Catalina Island. It wasn't studio controlled. It was real-world wind, instability, and unpredictability. The guests laugh, drink, move, and underneath it all, Rosemary's panic coils. That surreal freedom in the mise-en-scène heightens the nightmare. On the ocean, there's no hiding. Polanski uses that. You can sense the water's sway, the salt in the air, the ambiguity of safety. It becomes a floating threshold between normal and horror. Fact number 12. One of Hollywood's earliest realistic horror shots. Unlike the grand gore of later 1970s horror, Rosemary's Baby chooses the subtle. No monsters leaping from closets. Instead, the scratching on Rosemary's body, the unseen fetus, the whispered manipulation of those she trusts. It wasn't cheap thrills, it was psychological warfare. Critics later called the film almost too extremely plausible because the horror arises in realistic lives. The choice set a new template. Films like Get Out and The Witch build on this legacy of fear anchored in the everyday. The legacy of RHS real horror subtle begins here. Fact number 13. A baby's eyes that freeze you. The final scene reveals the baby with yellow, vertical slit pupils, an effect delivered via contact lenses. The film hides the full reveal until the crescendo. It wasn't gore. It was a delayed sting. That tiny detail that eyes activates the viewer's dread after the narrative's gentler climb. The shock isn't splat in your face. It lingers. What you don't see until the end is the full horror. And that makes the film endure. It's not the baby, it's the realization of what the baby is. Factus number 14. Sound design layered with the uncanny. Composer Krzysztof Komeda didn't just create background music, he built the film's invisible heartbeat. His eerie lullaby, sung softly by Mia Farrow herself, became one of the most haunting themes in horror history. What sounds like a soothing melody is actually a sonic trap. It rocks you into comfort while warning you that something terrible is coming. The tune, recorded with minimal instruments and Farrow's trembling voice, works on a subconscious level. Polanski wanted the audience to feel paranoia even when nothing is happening, so Komeda mixed in dissonant hums and distant breathing sounds that aren't identifiable but are unmistakably human. Even doors creak in rhythm with the score. The soundtrack wasn't overbearing, it was deceptively calm. When you rewatch the film, listen closely to the way the lullaby fades under everyday noise footsteps, streetcars, the murmur of neighbors. It's as if evil itself is humming in the walls. And when you realize that Komeda died tragically just a year later, that melody takes on an even darker significance, the lullaby of a composer who never woke up from the nightmare he scored. Fact number 15. A male-dominated cast, a subplot of control. On the surface, Rosemary's Baby is a horror film about demonic birth. But beneath that, it's a story about control, about men deciding what happens to a woman's body, mind, and choices. In 1968, this was quietly revolutionary. Rosemary's husband, Guy, gaslights her at every step. Her doctor silences her fears. Her neighbors infantilize her. By the end, she's surrounded by voices, none of them her own. Director Roman. Polanski didn't set out to make a feminist statement, but the result became one. Critics later saw it as an unintentional commentary on patriarchy. Every male character becomes a gatekeeper, dictating what Rosemary eats, feels, or believes. Even the camera participates, often positioned just behind her shoulder, trapping the viewer in her limited perspective. Mia Farrow's performance transforms this theme into lived terror. Her wide-eyed vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was realism. In an age when women's instincts were dismissed as hysteria, Rosemary's Baby turned that label into horror's weapon. The movie predicted decades of conversation about autonomy and belief wrapped in the innocent cover of a supernatural thriller. Fact number 16. A forged anagram hiding the villain's name. Roman Polanski loved puzzles, and he hid one right in plain sight. The villain's name, Roman Castevet, is an anagram of Stephen Marcato, the fictional son of a notorious occultist in the film's lore. It's not an obvious twist. You'd only notice it if you're a word game obsessive or freeze the script pages. This little linguistic trick adds a strange authenticity to the world. The devil worshippers don't just chant and scheme, they hide through intellect and deception. Polanski wanted the audience to feel that even words could betray you. It's why the clue is discovered by Rosemary herself. Scribbling letters on scraps of paper, an act of desperation that feels like decoding evil itself. That tiny puzzle encapsulates the film's genius. It treats paranoia as a rational act. Every whisper, every word could conceal a threat. The anagram isn't just clever, it's thematic. In a story about hidden identities and manipulation, even names are lies. Next time you watch the scene where Rosemary figures it out, notice her hands trembling as she rearranges the letters. That's not suspense. It's revelation the moment she realizes truth itself has been tampered with. Fact number 17. On-set conflict between director and actor. The tension between Roman Polanski and John Cassavetes was legendary. Cassavetes, a pioneer of independent filmmaking, thrived on improvisation, emotional, raw, unpredictable. Polanski, in contrast, was a meticulous architect. He storyboarded everything, down to the placement of a glass on a table. The result? A constant clash of creative philosophies. Cassavetes felt suffocated by Polanski's precision, complaining that multiple takes drained authenticity. Polanski, frustrated, countered that Cassavetes' looseness ruined composition and camera rhythm. Crew members remember arguments erupting in the apartment set, only for shooting to resume seconds later as if nothing happened. Ironically, this tension bled perfectly into the film. Guy Woodhouse, Cassavetes' character, is an actor whose selfishness corrodes his marriage, a man performing loyalty while hiding betrayal. The on-set hostility gave his performance that edge of falseness, that smirk too calm to be genuine. Polanski got exactly what he needed, a husband who feels like a stranger in his own home. Their conflict became chemistry, and the discomfort you feel between husband and wife isn't acting, it's captured friction, preserved forever on film. Fact number 18. A visual link to the occult via typographic trickery. Polanski's attention to detail extended to the smallest objects, even the rotary phone. In one of the film's late scenes, when Rosemary desperately calls for help, the numbers she dials, when flipped upside down, spell hell. It's a blink and miss detail that production designer Richard Silbert swore wasn't accidental. This was the pre-digital age, so everything had to be crafted physically: the phone, the labels, the lighting angle that made the digits gleam just right. The idea was to inject subconscious dread, the notion that even the act of reaching out for help connects you back to the infernal. Rosemary's lifeline is literally cursed. Most viewers never notice it consciously, but it works on a gut level. The image of that phone, white, sterile, ordinary, becomes tainted. It's the film's quiet message. Evil doesn't burst through doors. It hides in the domestic, the everyday. When the camera lingers on that dial, spinning and returning with mechanical calm, you're watching symbolism at work, a visual whisper that says, there is no escape. That's Polanski's brand of horror, the supernatural hiding in plain daylight. Fact number 19. One of Hollywood's most influential horror films. When Rosemary's Baby premiered in 1968, Few expected it to redefine an entire genre. The movie's success, earning over $33 million on a modest $3 million budget, proved that horror didn't need monsters, blood, or gimmicks to terrify audiences. It needed believability. Polanski introduced a new horror blueprint: psychological realism. The film's horror doesn't come from what's shown, but from what suggested: the cough behind the wall, the neighbor's polite smile, the doctor's soothing dismissal. These small, civilized details became the future of cinematic dread. Without Rosemary's Baby, we might never have gotten films like The Exorcist, The Omen, or even Hereditary. Critics were divided. At first, some found it too slow, others too disturbing. But over time, it was recognized as a turning point, the moment Hollywood realized that fear could look like normal life. The movie made audiences question their own homes, their neighbors, their trust in authority. It wasn't a scream fest, it was a slow infection, and once it entered culture, it never left. Fact number 20, a supporting actress. So convincing she stole the show? When Ruth Gordon signed on as Minnie Castevet, few expected her to redefine the concept of a supporting role. She was 72, eccentric, and full of theater energy. Polanski initially worried she'd overplay the part. Instead, Gordon delivered a performance so magnetic it won her an Academy Award. Minnie's chirpy nosiness, her pastel outfits, her endless chatter masks something sinister. She isn't a caricature. She's the smiling face of manipulation. Every dear girl or have some drink comes coated with menace. Gordon based her mannerisms on real New York matrons she'd observed, saying, "The most dangerous people are the ones who think they're being kind." Her chemistry with Sidney Blackmer as Roman Castevet gave the film its disturbing charm, evil hiding under polite hospitality. Viewers couldn't decide whether to laugh or shiver. That balance is why Minnie endures. She made domestic horror human. When she says, "He has his father's eyes," the line lands like a blade wrapped in sugar. Without Gordon's brilliance, the film might have been only chilling. With her, it became unforgettable, a horror story dressed in pearls and perfume. Bonus fact: few fans know about the short behind-the-scenes documentary titled Mia and Roman, a 23-minute feature shot during production that captures Polanski directing and the cast navigating the eerie set. It wasn't released widely, it was tucked into the DVD extras years later. What you see in that footage, the cameras, the cables, the actors between takes, reveals how much of the world you didn't see. The set was calm, but the inside was storm. It shows Polanski nearly alone at times, guiding the shots, shifting angles, walking through a world that would become a classic. And when you watch it, you grasp that the film is built on layers of real-life tension and artifice. That's the bonus. The real horror set behind the horror story. As credits roll on Rosemary's Baby, what lingers isn't simply the plot of a woman betrayed. It's the echo of everything you didn't see. The budget strain, the traffic danger, the creative fights, the secret symbols, the body exposed to risk, the building of dread brick by brick. The film's legacy isn't just in its images, it's in the craft of its fear, the unseen architecture behind the scream. So if you catch yourself revisiting the Bramford's windows, the lullaby drifting, the baby's eyes glinting, remember, you're seeing more than a movie. You're seeing the haunted framework of its making. Now go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the weird, wild, and hidden worlds of cinema. And remember, in the Bramford, everything is going according to plan, even if you don't know the plan yet.